Good morning. So, all right, we are on. Let me just test. Yeah, there we go. Right, so yes, I'm Mark Neve from Copper Horse. So the first thing we're talking about here today is so what happens when it all goes wrong. So when people are developing IoT products, I'll come up with some amazing new idea and get venture capitalists input to our funding to make a product. There's a book that's recommended called The Lean Startup. And the idea of this is you have to be first to market. The most important thing is to get that product out and get it selling. Because if you're not first to market, often your product just gets lost. Now, part of the being first to market is that get the product out. It doesn't have to be perfect. The software doesn't have to be perfect because you can always patch that software later. Well, that's not probably the. If you're from a security perspective, you want it to be as secure as possible before you develop a product. But there's always the infighting in companies as to whether it gets out or you get the security in there. So we just let me give you a scenario. So a company is trying to get the first to market. They develop a product based on a Raspberry Pi. On that Raspberry Pi, they're using Python script. On the Python script, they're using hard-coded credentials, default passwords for remote control of their devices, and all of these devices are deployed in the field. That is actually a scenario which we came across. We worked with a company who had a disclosure, and we went with them to do what we could to fix this issue, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on. So this is a great quote by Troy Hunt. So this is coming from the other side, so from a security researcher's perspective. So a company wants a device out as soon as possible. They want it to work make as much money as they can. Obviously, it's the way companies work. But from the other point, you have security researchers. Security researchers usually are trying to do a good thing. Their intention is to tell you have a vulnerability or you have a major issue, and they want to find some way to contact you. Often this is a problem. What if they send an email to security and that's the gatehouse? That the security email is for the people who actually look after the physical security of their place. Some contractor may have no idea what the issue is. So this is the second part of this. So you may have heard of the Consumer Code of Practice for IoT. This is a government document which is now being built into a ETSI standard. But the second part, so there's 13 points of the Code of Practice. But the really important one, well, obviously for me speaking today, is part number 2. But the UK government are trying to get points 1, 2, and 3 actually through into law, so that any devices, consumer devices sold in the UK, first of all, will have to have no default passwords. They also have to implement a vulnerability disclosure policy, and I think they have to do software or security updates. So, coming from the point of view of, it might be difficult to see that, but from the point of view of the security researcher. So this is some stats from Hack of One, which I'll explain what that is a little bit later on. So why are people hacking? Why are people looking at your platforms? So the main reasons to be challenged, to learn new tips and techniques, and people are always learning with these things. A good one there to have fun. Now, if you look at it from a different perspective here, so this is why do you choose the companies that you hack? Now the main reason, I can hardly read that from here myself, is that actually it's for the bounty, so 23.7% people are trying to make money from actually prodding and poking at companies. There's a couple of interesting ones there at the top. Is a lot of people hack because they like the company, and only a small amount of people actually try and hack companies because they dislike them. So these are your security researchers, these are your people who usually are trying to give you disclosure and do something in a good way. Of course, there's other people testing your security who could be potentially, whatever, organised crime, nation state, probably not going to get any information, you're not going to get disclosure from them, but we'll come to that a little bit later. So this is, as Jeff said before, there's best practice guides from the IT Security Foundation. I think they're out there. It's definitely worth picking up. So this is, we'll go through the best practice for the document, the IT Security Foundation document. So there's different types of vulnerability disclosure. Some ones which are reasonably obvious, like full disclosure, everything is released. Non-disclosure, the disclosure information is kept inside between the company and the security researchers. There's the RF policy, which is something a guy called a security researcher, Rainforest Puppy, came up with, where if he discloses to you and within 5 days you have not responded, then he will just do full disclosure. So it's a way of keeping you, of making you respond very quickly, just because of the quote I put up by Troy Hunt earlier. There's information in the IoT documents about what you need to put in your disclosure policy, the wording, what you want to be tested. There's certain parts of your platform which probably things like doing a denial of service or corrupting data or damaging your systems. You probably don't want that to be tested, or you don't want people to be attacking it in that way. You want things, issues that can be fixed, that help with the security. Disclosure timeline. For software issues, it's good to define 90 days. We've seen a lot of companies who don't define any timeline. They say until fixed or whatever they decide. 90 days is a good timeline for software fixes, often suggested 180 days for hardware because it takes a lot longer to refresh a set of hardware. Something else suggested is nominating the security response. The IT Security Foundation suggests the CISO, but usually you want somebody who understands what's going on, sees what's come in, how to react, and how to move forward with it. I guess the sort of key thing of that is you want somebody who is nice, who is going to communicate well and keep engaged with your security researchers. So this is more things that you put on your website. So it's really important. A security page is really useful, but anywhere where you have something that defines your policy, where people can actually read it. If you're not creating a security page, I know that Amazon, if you go to amazon.co.uk/security, it refers you to a section of their help. So basically you could do a redirect to somewhere else if you don't want a security page. You have any problems, somebody has done a disclosure to you, they've helped fix your security, giving them a thank you in any way that their request is really good. Really, because a lot of researchers are actually quite young and possibly looking to get into the industry. So if they have a bunch of thank yous that they can put on a CV and say, look, this is how I've helped other companies, then that's really useful for them. So the contact email address is, yes, both security and security alert. Yeah, it's just if there's potentially if there's any issues with using security, there's just a different option instead. So PGP key, you can put your public key on your website. Somebody can use that key to sign the email to send to you to show that it hasn't been tampered with, and it's a trusted communication. So if you don't want to do your vulnerability disclosure policy yourself, there are companies such as Bugcrowd Hack of One who, first of all, can do the managing of the receipt of the disclosure. Not only that, you can also set up bug bounties. So if there's a specific area of your platform that you would like looking at, or you're not sure about, you can specifically say, I don't know, the cloud interface with our database, and you can offer them, say, $500 or something, and people will look at that and target that. a really good way of improving your security. An interesting one there, it's a recent one, but I think it was October this year, Bugcrowd paid out over $500,000 in 1 week. So they are paying out a lot of money. But secondary to this as well, if you go onto the Bugcrowd or the Hack of One websites, they will teach you how to start the basis of hacking, so go through the steps. And they actually have like I think they call it Hacker 101, the Hacker 1 University, where it teach you in order to actually work out some vulnerabilities and try and make some money out of it. And some people are a lot of people actually are totally self-taught on this. So the other side of the coin here is the ZeroDeer Market. So I don't know who's heard of ZeroDeer. They have a really good catch line. So we pay big bounties, not bug bounties. So currently they're paying for a zero-click hack for I think it's Android. They'll pay up to $2.5 million. When people are selling to these companies like this, potentially they're selling this on to nation states or organised crime, or they're taking several different vulnerabilities together for privileged escalation or to make something much more dangerous.
Without it, it's not going to work.
It's sort of it's quite a sad scenario because they pay way more. I think Apple's top disclosure bounty, I think it's about $500,000. So yeah, this is the other end of the market. So this is a very good example of how not to go about when somebody gives you a disclosure. So this actually is the One Planet York app, which they had developed for all the citizens. You could download the app. You could see local bus times, what's on, all this sort of stuff. So they had basically they had a disclosure that somebody had hacked and stolen all their data. So York Council said on Twitter they attempted to contact the person. Basically, this has been a deliberate and unauthorized access, and they've informed the police. So they're saying that somebody has stolen all the data. Now, this isn't actually true, and this evolved on time on Twitter, and actually Troy Hunt tweeted to the police and said, no, you're wrong, this is actually a responsible disclosure given to you. They did not breach it, they did not steal all your data. So actually North Yorkshire Cyber Division tweeted back and says, yes, we understand this, this wasn't criminal, and we understand the benefits of this. So yeah, this sort of evolved over a few days. I think my boss, you tried to bring all sides together to do some sort of mediation, but I believe that the council declined. So when all this fell out at the end, and you could read the timeline, where the issue lay at the end was the security researcher had given them the information, and they'd been talking to them. But then the security settings on the council's, I think on their email server, was blocking all of the security researcher's emails. So he couldn't actually contact the council. So they blocked him from contacting them. But if you want to read up about this anyway, it's actually, it's on the company, it's Rapid Spike, and they have a blog and they have a timeline of exactly what happened. It's a really interesting read, because it's just, yes, how not to do it. But there's other ways of how not to do it as well. VTech, big toy manufacturer, 5 million customers' data was taken. Now this wasn't just named addresses, email addresses. This was also pictures of parents and children all stored in the database. In fact, VTech suggested that it'd be a good idea to test your toys out by taking a selfie with the parents and the children, and they had all this in a database. Now, the security researcher didn't go to VTech directly because he said the VTech security was utterly terrible. It was so bad that even if he'd done responsible disclosure to them, they wouldn't have done anything about it. But that's okay, because VTech decided that what they would do to fix this issue is they change the terms and conditions. And then, so if it's your responsibility if VTech get hacked, because you've given them your data freely. So yes, that is just, yeah, that's not the way forward.
They may be right, but what they haven't done in many cases.
So this is the way forward. We, as I say, we worked with a company who had never created an IoT product before, and they had some major issues across a lot of things. And the first thing and the most important thing we did with this was you need to keep the timeline. You need to know who you've communicated with when, what was said, and you know where you're. We were given 90 days. We weren't contacted until I think it was about sort of 4 or 5 weeks into this. They'd been trying to negotiate with a pen test company, suggesting that they should probably. They said, "Would it be okay if we just glued the SD cards in?" That was one of their solutions. No, that's not a good solution. So yes, so when we were brought in, the first thing is, and the most important thing is be nice. Just make sure that the people who's giving you the disclosure, the idea is there that it is for the betterment of society. You know, people have major issues. We want to get them resolved. And then the key one is you need to know what the problem was. You need to know what the problem was, how to replicate it, because then you can know how to fix it. Continually talk to the security researchers, make sure they know what's going on. Fix the issue. If you can, and if they will, do a joint disclosure. You do a press release together, you and the security researcher say, look, there was an issue, no customer data was leaked, this was fixed, and look, everybody did a great job here. Obviously say thank you to whoever's done this, and then issue an advisory to your customers to say there was an issue, no data was leaked, and we fixed it. That you need to keep the customer trust, because if they find this out a different way, then you have a serious problem. So, what we did, Copper Horse, we were employed by the IT Security Foundation to look at the use of disclosure in IoT devices sold, sold, is it the UK-based ones, I think? Oh, it's globally, right, okay. So yeah, so IoT devices sold globally. And we looked at how many companies, we did this in 2018, how many companies, first of all, had a disclosure policy in the first place, what their timeline was it 90 days, was it whatever they specified, did they have an email contact, did they have a PGP key. So in 2018, when we did this, we surveyed 330 companies, and 32 of them actually had a disclosure policy, so it's 9.7%. We refreshed this data. I believe the document will be published in the first quarter of next year, but we redid this data in 2019, and we had a slight improvement. So it was actually 44 companies had a policy, so it's about a 4%, 3.5% increase. A few more had a bug bounty program, 3 more had a bug bounty program, 6 more had a PGP key, and 4 more using a proxy disclosure service. But a couple of things that we found quite interesting in this was that companies who had a policy by region, in the USA there was 21 companies, 8 in China, 5 in South Korea, 2 in the Netherlands. So Europe is really seems to be a long way behind. Now, when the DCMS, when the Code of Practice becomes law, then hopefully everybody will have at that point a policy and we'll have 100% coverage. But Europe does really lag behind in this. And the 2 biggest product categories that we found there, which is smart home, lighting and security, only 1 out of 46 had a policy in lighting and 3 out of 37 in security. So it's, there's certainly some things to think about. So unsatisfactory is the quality of the data. And that's me. Thank you very much.